Okay, iXsystems has evolved actually. It was actually started from a very small distribution company in '91. So if you count the years, all right, we are reaching 30 years, right, next year. All right, so a bit of iXsystems is, it started as a FreeBSD distribution, all right, and eventually it got involved in the FreeNAS project. That was in 2009, all right, when people used the FreeBSD OS to build a firewall. And then as it evolves, all right, the iXsystems company actually combined the FreeBSD OS, which is the custodian of it, all right, and the OpenZFS, all right, and this OpenZFS is really the open source version of the ZFS file system from Oracle. So when they combined, there was actually a very solid combination, because you have a very rock solid kernel, but at the same time you also have a very rock solid and a very scalable file system. So this is how it evolves. I think the merger itself isn't exactly a merger, but really an extension of the project itself, right? For the longest time since 2015, I think, or even earlier than that, all right, it was always called FreeNAS, all right? It was actually maintained with a separate code base, right, with a bunch of developers and so on. But as IX continued to take custodian and ownership of that project, all right, eventually we are merging the code base so that the development itself is actually more streamlined, and then of course become more efficient. Right, but at the same time, in terms of branding, right, we are also switching over the FreeNAS name. So starting from version 12.0, which is actually coming very soon, all right, will be called TrueNAS Core. So FreeNAS will be TrueNAS Core, and then the TrueNAS will be TrueNAS Enterprise. And very soon next year, we'll be looking at a scale out, all right, which is actually TrueNAS Scale, but I won't talk much about that for now. So this is very key, all right. I mean, you take, for example, the Red Hat model, for example. Red Hat has Fedora, there's CentOS, and there's also Red Hat, all right. And each one of them supplies a different kind of confidence to the market. And for people who wants to run things on the enterprise, who wants the, you know, the peacefulness of sleeping good at night, then of course you go for TrueNAS Enterprise itself, right. TrueNAS will come with HA features, all right, which is not available in TrueNAS Core. Right, the enterprise itself comes with performance gains, especially in terms of unique medium like NVDIMMs, for example. Right, SSD, of course, is there, and so on and so forth. But more important is really the support itself. So we have different levels of support. We have bronze, we have silver international, that's catered for international time zones, all right, and as well as gold, which is 24/7. So it's very important to actually understand from the open source point of view. We have open source that is meant for builders. We have open source that's meant for what we call assemblers, all right? And last but not least, we have open source that's meant for crafters, all right? If you actually segment it that way, the builders will be actually, you know, writing their codes, building the software itself, building it from scratch, all right? The assemblers will take codes from others, modules, you know, things that have been out there that's being freely put it into GitHub, you know, and GitLab and so on and so forth. When you put it together to assemble a solution, that's the assembler part. But the more important part is actually the crafter part. The crafter part means you have almost a ready-made open source solution that you can just put it onto the hardware and it will just work. And it will still do the usual, you know, infrastructure services like the SAN, the NAS itself. You don't have to assemble it. You don't have to do some major configuration with it. It works. So TrueNAS actually fits into the crafter position itself. So you say that if, let's say, open source you know, adoption is not very high in Asia or in ASEAN, or what, you'll be very surprised that there's so many FreeNAS downloaders out there that is building their own, running their own SAN or NAS or NAS and runs it in the production. All right, I run a community here, all right, which is on storage, and so I've been running for about 11 years now. All right, you'll be surprised, the guys will be sending me emails and say, hey, did you know that I'm running FreeNAS and this is running a manufacturing aircon in Sungai Buloh? You know, we will be surprised. There's so many people that reach out to us and say that we are building it for the business. Yes, all right, you think that they don't want to pay, which is really the open source model, right? But as they graduate from a free one to where they actually run their business 24/7, they would need something like a TrueNAS Enterprise. So that's why the open source is so critical itself. The economics, all right, it's not just builders, all right, it's not just assemblers, but the whole ecosystem of builders, assemblers, and crafters. And we fit into the crafter space. Take the OS, install it into your laptop, it starts running. Put it onto VirtualBox, it runs. Put it onto a petabyte system, 10 petabyte system, it runs. It's the same code. That's where the uniqueness of open source comes in.